Good evening. My name is Roxanne Chabot from RBC Consultants. Welcome to another International Dermatology Education Foundation Educational Series webinar. This evening, we're going to be talking about how to navigate the changing landscapes of dermatology and industry relations. Our moderator this evening is Dr. Leon Kircik, who's president of the International Dermatology Education Foundation and clinical professor of dermatology at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai in New York, Indiana University Medical Center in Indianapolis, and medical director of physician skincare, DermResearch, and skin sciences. Our panel this evening will consist of Michael Braun, who is U.S. Senior Vice President, Immunology and Fibrosis, Monica Chung, Vice President, U.S. Head of Sales, Brian Mangene, who is Vice President, U.S. Head of Marketing and Brand Lead, and Tom Scharnitz, who is Senior Director, U.S. Medical Lead for TIC2. We'd like to thank our supporter, Bristol Myers Squibb, for making this educational event possible. Before we begin, a couple of logistic tips. If you're having issues hearing the webinar, you can listen to the presentation using your telephone. Just select phone call in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. If you're having technical issues or if you would like to ask a question from our faculty, please submit your question in the question chat pane on the right-hand side of your screen. At the end of the webinar, a survey will pop up in your screen and will also be sent to you 1 to 2 days later. We truly appreciate it if you could fill it in and send it back to us. Within 1 to 2 days of the webinar, a certificate of attendance will also be sent back to you. Again, please submit your questions using the question chat pane on the right-hand side of your screen. So I will pass the floor virtually now to Dr. Leon Kircik.
Thank you, Roxanne, and good evening, everyone. And thank you for joining us this evening for another series of International Dermatology Education Foundation. So, as you know, International Dermatology Education Foundation's mission is, it's a nonprofit organization whose principal mission is to raise awareness and improve dermatology care all over the world through education, especially in underserved areas. And we have done so many programs in the past during COVID and post-pandemic now, as you can see, both in North America as well as in South America, globally in Southeast Asia and Europe. Tonight, we are very lucky to have a very special panel, and it is different than what we usually do, talk about a product or a drug, but tonight we're gonna talk about a company, BMS, and we have Michael Braun, U.S. Senior Vice President, Immunology and Fibrosis from BMS, Monica Chung, who's the Vice President of U.S. Head of Sales, Brian Mangene, Vice President, U.S. Head of Marketing and Brand Lead, and Tom Scharnitz, who is a dermatologist, and Dr. Scharnitz is the Senior Director for U.S. Medical Lead. And they're all joining us from BMS tonight, and we will start our panel Q&A. So, Michael, as you know, BMS is returning to dermatology after a long history with compounds with the originator Westwood Squibb. I remember when I was a resident in Buffalo, New York, I remember Westwood Squibb, the plant was there and we were involved with clinical studies, originally the vitamin D product. So would you mind sharing a little bit BMS's overall mission and what a return to dermatology is encompassing?
Great. Well, first of all, Dr. Kircik, thanks so much for having us tonight, and good afternoon and good evening to everyone. It's great that we'll be able to talk about tonight how at BMS we're really working to bring innovation to your patients and having an open discussion about how to navigate the changing landscapes and really working with BMS. You know, personally, over the past decade, I've been able to work in the field of dermatology. And in the past year, I've been with Bristol Myers Squibb and worked with many of you. And what I've learned that is what's front and center to everything that we do is around delivering for patients, and patients is what really unites us all together. And that's what you can see right here on this slide, that our overall mission across everything that we do is to discover, develop, and deliver innovative medicines that help prevail over serious diseases. And our vision overall is to be the world's leading biopharma company that transforms patients' lives through science. And it is really about transforming patients' lives through science. And you know, a lot of companies will talk about the fact that they're patient-centric. We really live this every single day. And I'll give you some things to bring it to life on how we do that. First of all, every single week across the globe, at every BMS location, we have a Global Patient Week. This is a week where we bring patients to be with us, you know, every single day, so that we can feel that what they go through and understand what they go through every single day. And it's something that is very unique and ingrained into the BMS culture. And so, you know, when you walk into a BMS site, how important you know, being here for patients is all about. And I know that's what you as dermatologists do every single day, is help to really eradicate dermatological diseases that are impacting patients. The other thing, just to bring to life, and I think many of you know, I have a lot of passion around cycling. Well, this is something that BMS does every single year. We have the Coast to Coast for Cancer ride, where 120 BMS associates ride 3,000 miles across the country, raising millions of dollars to fight cancer. And that kind of gives you an idea of how it's really ingrained within our DNA. Now, you just actually brought up the fact that we have a legacy and in dermatology with Bristol Myers Squibb, and you know, products that you're all familiar with, like Dovanex and Kenalog, amongst many others, you're very familiar with. And now, you know, over the last several years, we're building up our presence again in a very unique way. As you might know, we've had recent approvals in dermatology in the field of psoriasis. We also have 3 approved products for melanoma, and a very active research and development program that you're going to hear more about from Tom, who will talk about where we're really trying to pioneer and innovate and bring new innovations to really help, again, patients prevail from serious diseases. The other thing I just would love to hit on is the fact that we are a very big organization that works across many therapeutic areas: oncology, cardiovascular disease, hematology, and our presence in immunology, which derm is one of the 5 key pillars, is joining our legacy in rheumatology, an area of expertise that we're building up in gastroenterology, pulmonary, and neurology. And what we have, you know, a common thread around this overall at BMS is to help free patients from immune-mediated diseases. And that will all come with the fact that we're committed to path-breaking science, making meaningful differences for diseases where we will either be the first in class or best in class to make sure that we're making a difference for you and for your patients. And so, you know, our long history started with Bristol Myers Squibb. We have now a bigger presence overall in immunology, and this, I think, what shares the most amount of promise about our sustained, you know, commitment to this area is the fact that we have over 20 assets in 20 different disease states in immunology, and I'm very excited about the fact that this will only come to fruition in working very, very closely with the dermatology community and all the stakeholders in the healthcare system.
Michael, thank you so much. That was really a nice intro to BMS and the history. And honestly, for a big company like BMS, I am so pleasantly surprised that you guys have shown your commitment to dermatology recently within the last couple of years. It's amazing. Would you mind discussing a little bit what specifically that commitment looks like? Maybe a little bit in more detail.
Absolutely. And first of all, you know, it all starts with making sure, and as I've already said, it's about the science, right? We have to make sure that we're really bringing, actually, if you just go back to the previous slide.
Oh, sure.
It's about the science, but we can only do this in working with the community, right? And And as you saw, actually, it's the next slide, which had all of the different organizations that's really critical for us to work with. You know, we know that we have to work across in a collaborative way with all of the stakeholders in the healthcare system to make that happen. And as you can see, this just represents, it's not all inclusive, but gives you an idea that over the past several years, we have been listening very closely to all of the dermatology community, but also the surrounding stakeholders, whether it's patient advocacy groups, professional societies, obviously the payers, the regulators, and bringing the dermatology community in very early because we cannot do this unless we're listening to patients and to the community, and that is how we felt like we're doing this in a very thoughtful way, working closely and together to really make that happen. And that's what we're really proud of. And I think I think Brian can share more about some of the unique ways that we're doing this and bringing to life the fact that we're doing this with a light onto diversity and inclusion. So Brian, do you want to talk more about that?
Yeah. Thank you, Michael, and I appreciate that. And Dr. Kircik, there you go. Thank you. So let's talk about commitment in another way, which is really around health equity. So as Michael indicated, we're an inclusive, really a patient-centered company. And we're really committed to doing our part in advancing health equity. And this really means the assurance that everyone has a fair and just opportunity to achieve optimal health outcomes. And so we launched the Health Equity Initiative at BMS here back in August of 2020. And since then, we have undertaken numerous efforts and evolved our business practices across the enterprise to launch both diversity and inclusion as well as health equity. And we've integrated these efforts into our daily work to really help prevail over serious disease, as Michael indicated earlier, around our vision and our mission. As this slide highlights, there are really 4 key areas of focus. The first is disparities. The next is around clinical trial diversity. We also have supplier diversity as well as workforce representation. And so when we think about health disparities, this is really around accelerating disease awareness and education programs and really those medically underserved communities and really improving access to care, being advocate for policies that really promote health equity. And since its inception back in August of 2020, BMS has spent nearly $100 million in distributing funding that has reached more than 10 million people through our programs and services. So we're really excited about that pillar. The second pillar is really around clinical trial diversity. And we had a goal of locating about 25% of our BMS clinical trials in the US in highly diverse communities. And in the last 2 years, we've hit over 58%. So we've achieved our goal already of BMS clinical trial sites, or 58% of BMS clinical trial sites are now located in what we consider racially and ethnically diverse areas. So we're very excited about that. And we're also bringing the real world now into the clinical trials based on the clinical trial diversity in our initiative there. The third area is around supplier diversity. We spend about $1 billion globally. We expect to spend about $1 billion globally by 2025 with Black and African American and other diverse owned businesses. And we've achieved our goal of spending that $1 billion globally in 2022 ahead of plan. So we're excited about that and our diversity with our supplier community. And finally, we've worked very diligently around workforce representation, making sure that our workforce represents the population in general, and achieving gender parity at the executive level globally, and then really doubling our executive representation of both Black and African American as well as Hispanic and Latino employees in the US by 2022. And again, we've made meaningful progress against those goals as we've announced back in 2020. So these are really areas that are important to BMS, really advancing health equity and making sure that everyone has the opportunity to achieve optimal health outcomes.
You know, that's very interesting, especially for the clinical trial diversity. For me, you know, as a clinical trialist, we see it every day, the access issues for some patients, and it's been very difficult. So I think that's a great, I think very important initiative that you guys are taking over. That makes me really happy, and most of us in the community. So that's great. Now, Brian, you are the brand lead in the commercial team, and BMS has been a very strategic, and you guys had a very nice launch for your recently approved product. So tell me, what what has your team constructed?
Yeah, so thank you for asking about that. So let's start first with a few key areas of focus for my team, and then we'll talk a bit about how my team is constructed. So first, for our launch and our commercial marketing approach, it's really based on deep insights. And when we talk about deep insights, we're talking really about insights from both the patient and the HCP. As Michael indicated earlier, we're a patient-centric company, so we really want to ensure that the patient journey is present in all that we do. And the voice of the dermatology patient is seen and felt throughout our resources, whether in their DTC commercial, our patient teaching resources, our office resources, whatever they may be. We need to make sure that the patient is seen and felt and heard in those resources. And in addition, when we talk about insights, we're talking about HCP insights as well. We've really invested in gathering a deep understanding of the dermatology mindset, so that our launch approach really resonates with the dermatology community. Historically, BMS was a very oncology-centered company, and now as we've expanded in immunology, we really need to understand that mindset. And so we wanted to make sure that our launch resonated, as I said earlier. So insight gathering, whether it was through market research, advisory boards, or just being present with customers at our international, national, regional, and local congresses, really meeting customers where they are and making sure that where we're going resonates with them and we're gathering insights from them. The second big focus besides deep insights was really making sure we had a robust investment in education. And this really started with disease state education and the recognition of both pathway, so mechanism of pathway, as well as mechanism of action education as a new target within immunology. And so to do that, we hosted well over 200 mechanism of pathway education programs for the dermatology community, and really continue to educate on our product with a really robust educational program. And as we're thinking about this, we also have a dedicated faculty across all HCP segments, whether they're physicians, MPPAs. We want to make sure that it's representative of the current market. And we also have plans to provide education, expansion of education to both access and bio coordinators, because that's an important part of the business, an important part of your offices. And then the last area of focus before I start talking about my team and how we're addressing this focus is really on the evidence-based data. So we really want to make sure we're incorporating data that's meaningful. We know that the derm specialty is really safety conscious, and so we're thoughtful in what we present and how we present it in our resources, as well as ensure that we're collecting ongoing long-term data and real-world evidence to build and ultimately establish our overall product profile. So with those as backgrounds and key areas of focus, let's talk a bit about my team and how it's constructed. We have some things that are really new or enhanced to BMS, so I'm going to share some BMS firsts. So as all commercial teams, we have a full team of HCP and patient marketers, but really as part of this team, we also have a group that's focused on APPs. We know this is a growing segment and they have different educational needs. So we have a team in office as well as field facing that works with our APPs. We also have constructed a regional marketing team, which is a new capability to BMS. And this may be known in other companies as thought leader liaisons or strategic customer liaison. And this is really a new role to BMS and has allowed us to focus on gathering marketplace insights, lead our peer-to-peer education, and really construct a thoughtful Congress approach and facilitate advisory boards with really a commercial marketing focus, as well as better understand our customer segments, as like I said, including those access and bio coordinators. Then next, we put in place a corporate accounts team, and we know the terrain here is different in dermatology. We know private equity is really prevalent in dermatology, and added expertise to focus on this growing trend and really build an approach that will really resonate with customers, help understand and resonate with these customers is going to be very important. And then finally, while these people are not directly on my team, we do have access support with our field-based reimbursement team that really helps us make sure that once a physician prescribes the product, we have support to help that patient ultimately transition to our product. So hopefully this gives you some background on my team and what we're focused on and how we're meeting our customer needs.
That was a great overview. And I really appreciate the fact that you guys had that mechanism of pathway education for us. That was so useful. And I think everybody else should learn from you and take that road because for a new molecule, when a new molecule comes to the market, I think for us, it's very important to learn that mechanism of pathway for the drug, for the disease, and then how the related drugs work, right? So I think that was a very useful education that you provided to the derm community. The other thing I want to comment on is the education and the assistance that the support that you have for our biologic coordinators, right? That's very important part of our office, and that really helps us a lot, how to get access for our patients. And lastly, I think the APPs, right? Either nurse practitioners or physician assistants have become a vital part of dermatology community. I think, like it or not, regardless what certain controversies, still they are here and we need them. And I think their education is very, very important because we need to bring them up to the education level that they can take care of our patients. So I think you have done a great job in that as well. So I really, really appreciate all those efforts on BMS's part. And thank you for bringing them to our attention since we have a lot of listeners. Next is Monica. So you are the head of the sales organization. And so what has BMS constructed, knowing that the dermatology market is unique? You know, it's different than rheumatology, the GI, especially oncology. So knowing the fact that derm is a unique market, how did your team was constructed?
Thanks, Dr. Kircik, and I appreciate the question because you and I have had several and long chats about just how unique dermatology is. And you know, at the end of the day, the themes that Brian pulled through in terms of how we thoughtfully laid out the foundation for the commercial organization is really no different than what we did within the sales organization. So we had a really unique and special opportunity to really build our US commercial team from the ground up and truly meeting the unique needs of our dermatologists and all the providers in the offices. So, you know, as you mentioned, just given that dermatology is such a special and unique space, we're really having sales folks that have a specialized background in dermatology, established relationships, but also local knowledge at the territory and geography level is so critical. And so we had significant investments in truly recruiting, hiring, and training literally the best in industry talent. You know, I think the one special call out of the sales organization was that it is an elite sales team because we brought in such a diverse set of backgrounds of folks that came from various areas in dermatology. Just to share with you one statistic, on average, you know, each of our sales reps have 8 years of dermatology experience, 17 years of overall sales experience. But when you think about the sales force combined, it represents over 2,300 years of dermatology experience. So that really allowed us to be at really the strongest advantage point at our launch and to truly, you know, understand the heartbeat, I would say, of each of our customers at a very local level. On top of the traditional, you know, sales force organization, Brian hit on this a little bit earlier, but we also designed, developed, and I'm going to say unleashed a very specialized team of what we call dermatology APP liaisons. So again, these APP liaisons, they're not MSLs, they're not sales reps. We literally recruited nurse practitioners and PAs that had on average over 13 years of clinical experience so that we could truly connect deeply with the needs of our APP customers. Because as you mentioned, Dr. Kircik, you know, our NPs and PAs, they are at the heart of patient care as well in the dermatology space. And the types of engagements and the needs of APPs are a bit nuanced where, you know, from a peer-to-peer standpoint, they are wholly dedicated to really, you know, coming in to meet the needs from peer conversations and unique resources within the APP community. And then the last thing that I'll also say is that as we hired this team, one of the things that I'm most proud of is, I think we really differentiate ourselves from the standpoint of a superior customer experience, because now it's bringing together the throngs of a sales organization, the dermatology APP team that I talked about. As Brian mentioned, this regional marketing team, we have our really strong, reimbursement team, as well as our MSLs. And it's really that harmonious engagement that we provide to customers that we take a lot of pride and we put a lot of importance in, because as dermatologists, you are handling so much day to day, and it's our job to make things more seamless and to make it easier for our practitioners to literally provide the best information, the best options to all patients. And that's something that I think really separates BMS, in that as we hired and as we thought about the culture and the phenotype of all of our commercial folks, that it really is, they really can show up as one united team. So it's not a discombobulating experience.
So Monica, I really appreciate the fact that a large company like BMS recognizes the importance of the relationship within the derm community, and the fact that you guys hired experienced sales team, and I think that will contribute a lot to your success. So it's great. But the fact that also BMS has a dermatologist on board in the medical team, it's even more impressive, because we usually don't see that. So Dr. Tom Scharnitz is a dermatologist. Welcome, Tom. It's good to see you. And it's so nice to have a dermatologist on the medical side, on the medical team. So Tom, I know that you guys have a great commitment to dermatology, medical dermatology. You have a great pipeline. So would you mind discussing a little bit the current pipeline in dermatology, and also what your team has constructed as medical resources?
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Kircik. So I wanted to just tie back to Michael's comments a little bit about our patient-centric focus at BMS. And the reason being is the number one question I always get is, why did you leave clinical practice to join industry? And it comes down to BMS's mantra, which Michael mentioned, transforming patients' lives through science. From day one, even through the interview with BMS, I felt this collective goal of innovating in the dermatology space to bring these life-changing medications to our patients. And what it really comes down to is the patient-centric focus, but also the robust pipeline that you're seeing on this slide. I saw an opportunity by joining BMS to impact an exponentially greater number of patients through this pipeline, through the assets, through the hard work that everyone has put in, than I ever could, hope to accomplish in the clinic, although I do miss seeing patients day to day. So the pipeline here is showing really 4 specific dermatologic conditions that we're currently addressing. The one that most people may know about is psoriasis. We have now an FDA-approved medication for treating moderate to severe plaque psoriasis, a novel first-in-class TYK2 inhibitor. But 3 additional important and disabling conditions are shown here too, including psoriatic arthritis, which has an obvious tie-in as one of the most important and one of the most prevalent comorbidities seen with psoriasis, alopecia areata, and discoid and subacute cutaneous lupus. But then going back to some of the drugs that have already had somewhat of a tie into the dermatology space are the 3 approved medications we have in immuno-oncology, which include a PD-1 inhibitor, a PD-1 LAG-3 inhibitor, and a CTLA-4 inhibitor. These are well known to the dermatology community because although most dermatologists probably don't prescribe these drugs themselves, they know of the incredible strides we as a medical community have made in treating melanoma and other malignancies through this immunotherapy. So I am optimistic that our reach will extend well beyond what is seen here. BMS is truly taking a pathway approach by focusing on specific inflammatory pathways that are associated with increased risk of diseases. So our drugs and our pipeline assets have a promise of treating various other immune-mediated inflammatory diseases. As you know, in dermatology, there's many debilitating conditions, really without good treatment options, currently often using off-label options because that's the best we have. But I'm hopeful and optimistic that our pipeline will address many of these moving forward. Thinking about the staffing coming into this role from clinical, I didn't really know how big and how extensive the medical side of industry was. So BMS Medical is comprised really of a large and diverse group of scientifically minded individuals in various different roles, but also from various different backgrounds. We have the home office medical team, which I lead. scientific content, publications in medical education, and patient advocacy, just to name a few. But really, it's smart and motivated people in every position working ultimately to bring our drugs to our patients. And I really mean this when I say we couldn't function without each and every one of our medical colleagues, but also the BMS partners at large, including the other panelists you see on the call today. So as I said, I lead the home office medical team. And after why I left clinical practice, the second most common question I get is, what is my role on the medical team in a pharmaceutical company? So I'm involved in data generation, clinical trials, and I lead the medical strategy, but I also consider myself an internal consultant. So I think BMS wanted to bring a dermatologist to the US team to truly bring the dermatology clinic to both the medical team and my insights and my subject matter expertise to not just the medical team, but our partners as well. One team I wanted to focus specifically on, and Monica had referenced them, was our medical science liaison team. They're involved in our day-to-day interactions with our providers, and BMS currently has 29 MSLs from many different backgrounds. On our home office medical team, we also have 3 PharmDs and a PA, which is very important to get their perspectives. And similarly, in the MSL team, we have many doctors of pharmacy, PhDs, and also a physician assistant there too. And because of our MSL team, we're able to reach providers across the US and Puerto Rico, and they ensure that our providers always have the most up-to-date information and data that we've generated throughout the year, whether it's publications, abstracts, posters presented at congresses. But in addition to this, they respond to specific medical information requests that the providers may have, and they also assist in our clinical trials. So as a team, we work closely with the dermatology community in research and phase 4 trial exploration as well. Once again, aside from the pipeline that you see here, we have multiple planned phase 4 trials and investigator-initiated studies to address data gaps in dermatology. And because of these relationships, once again, I'm very optimistic for the role that BMS will play in providing our patients with positive outcomes and symptomatic relief. And finally, definitely last but not least, we are committed to real-world data generation. I think Brian had mentioned this. This is done largely through our health economics and outcomes team, also known as HEOR. Clinical trials obviously vital to drive innovation, to investigate novel pathways linked to various diseases, and ultimately to bring the drugs to our patients. But Dr. Kircik, as you know better than anyone else, clinical trials may not always reflect the patient experience in the real world. Therefore, by obtaining this real-world data, we get to see exactly how the patients respond to our treatments when you take into account all of the real-world conditions and daily variables that they encounter. So all in all, I'm incredibly proud of our medical team, those that I highlighted here and those I did not have time to discuss at length, but I'm also quite proud of the emphasis that BMS places on medical's role in the company and in the various things I just discussed.
Thank you so much, Tom. I mean, especially being a clinical trials, I understand the importance of the clinical trial to get the drug through the agency. On the other hand, the real life data is so important because, as you mentioned, unfortunately, the real life doesn't, or I should say clinical trial patients don't necessarily reflect the real life, right? So I really appreciate the fact that you guys are involved with that. And also the fact that you do support investigator-initiated trials. I think that's huge, especially to create real-world data. But I also know that you guys are involved with the residency support. Maybe can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, so we've supported a lot of programs recently, residence being one of them. I always like to say I'm actually really not that far removed. I graduated in June 2020, so I remember what it was like being a resident. And depending on where you train, you have either absolutely zero exposure to industry, as I had, whereas some residency programs get to interact with industry a lot. And I think it's important because you get to see the role that industry plays in developing the medications, understanding the process, but then also understanding the various different people from industry you will meet and you'll interact with from that point forward. So we're invested not just in clinical trialists, investigators, community dermatologists, but really the up and coming dermatologists as well, the residents, and then a large portion too, which I think Brian and Monica talked about, was our NPs and PAs. As you know, there's many NPs and PAs in dermatology. Their role is becoming increased every single year. So it's important, as you said, to treat them as our partners and to invest in them as well.
Absolutely, and I think the fact that you guys have a committed force to address the MPs and PAs is very commendable. Again, I think it's a very important part of the dermatology education, especially for the MPs and PAs. So thank you for having that. I think I feel that that is one of the most important challenges that we have, how to train MPs and PAs, and you guys contributing to that. It's a great contribution to overall the whole dermatology community. So what I wanted to ask a little bit, you know, with the pandemic, I think the medical world has changed. It's continuously evolving. The AI, the IT, the whole world has changed, right? We have virtual meetings like this one. So what's BMS doing to catch up and to stay innovative? Anybody?
I think you're on. I think you might be on mute, Michael.
Yeah, Michael's gonna go, but I think he's on mute. Did he freeze?
He's back.
Oh, you're back, Michael.
Unmute yourself.
Well, maybe I'll jump. Michael, you ready? You want to jump in, or I can jump in?
Okay, no, I couldn't unmute myself. Someone else muted me. So thank you.
Oh.
And you can't hear me say, please unmute myself.
Technology,
So,
there it is right there.
yeah, and it's a great topic about technology, right? I mean, you know, the environment is changing and evolving. And that's actually front and center to what's here. And actually, I want to just bring to life a little bit of what you just saw from Brian, from Monica and Tom. Like, we work seamlessly across our teams, and that's, I think, one of the most critical key ingredients for us to be able to continue to innovate and adapt with how things are evolving, so at lightning speed. And so that's the future. The pandemic just accelerated a lot of those dynamics. And what that will require us to do is that all the things that we've put in place have to work in unison together to meet your needs. And you know, we're moving from in the past where things were much more transactional, that we would do things like back and forth, maybe have a program here, an engagement here and there. It's about a long-term ability to listen and bring those things forward and adapt and move as on a weekly basis, not on an annual basis. And that's something that we're looking to do across our entire company, is how do we bring more medicines to patients faster in this environment? And I'll go back to something that I spoke to earlier when I showed all those different organizations, right? For us to advance science and improve outcomes, it has to be by working across the entire complex ecosystem, whether it's patients, caregivers, healthcare organizations, clinical trial sites, and then first and foremost, the dermatology community. We have to be able to work in bringing everyone together, just like we bring our teams together as one BMS.
So we have.
Maybe let me pick up.
Go ahead, please, Brian.
Yeah, let me pick up on that. I mean, obviously, technology will continue to play an increasingly important role as we're moving forward. And if we step away from dermatology just for a second, I mean, many of us don't shop at shopping malls anymore. We don't get our news on the 6 p.m. evening news. I mean, we're attached to these things. Hopefully, it's always on vibrate. And we need to be able to, you know, think about that. And in a similar vein, we're going to need to find new ways to meet our customers where they are with leverage technology. And you know, as we think about what this means, it means getting the right information to you, the physician or the HCP, at the right time in the right medium. You may not have the availability to spend 15 minutes with one of Monica's sales reps. Hopefully you do, but you don't want every single time. Or have an evening, you know, to do a dinner program, but you still need that information. You still need that relevant information. And really, as such, we're going to be working through technology to provide you the right chunks, you know, the pieces of information at exactly when you need that, in the right place that you're looking for it, right? So right content, right person, right time, right place. And we'll be able to then better meet your needs in order to do that. So that's the type of solutions from an organizational standpoint that we're looking for, and we're looking to drive, just realizing that technology in the world has changed around us.
So we have a lot of questions on access issues. Without going any details, overall, can you discuss your efforts for access?
Michael, do you want to take that one? You want how do you want?
I'm happy to start. Actually, one of the things that there's three critical ingredients for us to be able to be successful to help you, right? One is we have to have innovative products. The second is we have to have an incredible team to deliver them, which the team here has been able to talk about. And the third one is we have to build capabilities to get friction out of the system to deliver the best customer and patient experience. And the challenge that we have, right, is that the healthcare system puts lots of restrictions in place that make it very difficult to do that. So we put a considered effort of really trying to figure out how to best navigate those challenges. And so in particular, we're not going to talk about particular products in this discussion today, but we have an entire team, which is the only team that's not on here, which is our value access and payments team. Brian talked a little bit about, and Monica talked about how we have reimbursement specialists that really help to work with patients as well as the folks in your offices to really unlock different barriers that come to play. And a very generous free trial offer and also a free goods program to give patients, multiple years of medication for free if they're unable to get access. Because it's a shame that you develop something that will make a meaningful difference to transform the lives of patients tied to our mission and our vision, right? And if you cannot get it, and so we spend just as much time on the development of the product as trying to figure out how to get it to you and to your patients. And so that we have a dedicated organization that works seamlessly with us as well. And we'll continue to bridge the time until we are able to gain formulary access to make sure patients have access to our brand. So that's something that I think is near and dear to our focus. And Monica and Brian, if you have anything to add, I'd love to hear.
And I think a key component that Michael hit on, Dr. Kircik, is really just providing seamless education, because there's so many people that touch this, in the office, whether it be the bio coordinator, the medical assistant, the dermatologist directly as well. So it's really trying to provide the easiest path. But as Michael alluded to, a lot of our focus around educating is showing that while, as a new drug, even if there is limited coverage, that doesn't necessarily mean that there is a barrier to access. Because between the free goods program that Michael mentioned and not having to worry about starting a patient quickly and seamlessly on product, the samples play a key role as well. So really just trying to make it as easy as possible once you as the prescriber make that treatment decision.
Brian, do you want to add anything?
Nothing else.
Yeah.
No, nothing else. I mean, I think Monica summarized it, which is once you as a physician or an ACP decide to prescribe it, the goal is simple and easy. And I think Monica and Michael took you through the various layers of things that we think about to make sure that the patient can, once that decision is made, get on drug rapidly and stay on drug for the duration of the benefit of the therapy.
And also, I have to add, your support to the bio coordinators are so important, and the directions. I think that you guys give, it's very, very helpful for our office staff. So again, that helps the access for our patients much easier. So I think those are very important points for our office staff. So thank you for that. So what opportunities ahead for BMS in dermatology?
Yeah, maybe I could start that one off from
Please.
a medical standpoint. One of the things that in my new role, relatively new, I really wanted to accomplish was an increase in funding investigators. So we have a research grant with the Derm Foundation, which is $1 million across 3 years. And the first one was awarded to an investigator from UPenn with the goal of increasing diversity in clinical trials. So although we provided the funding, we didn't choose the topic, we were really happy that it aligned with BMS's vision and commitment to diversity in clinical trials. We do have a few others that we're working on currently. Hopefully will be executed by the end of the year. But again, I think it was very important coming from the clinical world, coming from being involved in trials, that we do show our support through research grants and funding. Another similar topic you had mentioned is investigator-initiated studies, IIS or IIT. We have 2 times a year, and we love when our dermatology community, whether it's MDs, DOs, MPs, or PAs, submit ideas to us about how they can use our drugs to benefit some of those not shown on the pipeline slide there. So some of the more debilitating, rare, challenging dermatologic conditions, if they see scientific rationale for improvement in something, we encourage submitting those, and we take those very seriously, because we do think at the end of the day, that's another pathway to investigate our assets in various different dermatologic conditions.
An area that
so maybe I'll pick up.
Please.
No, then Monica, please.
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to say, and I think one of the things that Tom mentioned and Michael mentioned earlier is we're so excited, Dr. Kircik, because truly the best is yet to come for BMS and dermatology with all the future approvals and really being in areas where there is still a high significant unmet need for patients. But one of the areas that I would say that especially for my organization and more broadly all encompassing across BMS, whether it be the medical or commercial organization, is continuing to devote ourselves to helping the dermatology community as far as education. I think just given the multitude of providers in the space, so whether it's a dermatologist, whether it's an NPPA, whether it's that bio coordinator, office staff, whoever it may be, are really meeting the unique needs of where there may be gaps, whether it's both unbranded or around the clinical profile of the asset. And dermatology is a really fun space to be in, to really support that education, because between the expanded footprint of congresses and all of the different unique forums that there are, this one being a very special one with the International Dermatology Education Forum as an example, but it's really how we can uniquely partner and really collaborate with a multitude of stakeholders to help meet the educational needs and do it in a very fun, innovative, and exciting manner. So that's really, part of this next chapter that we're looking forward to as well.
Thank you. That is really valuable. Thank you so much. Brian.
So yeah, very similar answer to Monica here. As I'm thinking about what's ahead, it is around the 2 things about partnership and education. So partnership really with the professional societies, the advocacy groups, making sure that the patients, the physicians, the APPs, all the different groups that we spoke to tonight are really educated on the various options, and really making sure, from a dermatology standpoint, that we're really expanding the opportunities for patient treatment as well. There are a number across a lot of the different disease states within dermatology. There's a number of very effective and good options, but we need to expand the understanding for those options to make sure that the patients are getting those therapies, because we know in a number of these therapies that patients aren't getting treated or treated maybe most effectively. So to me, that's another huge opportunity as we continue to think about where we need to go from a leadership standpoint in dermatology.
Thank you. Michael?
Yeah, the team really summarized it, and I'll just reiterate the 3 most important things, right? The first one is and actually before I even go through the 3 things, we are, as I shared, re-entering into the dermatology space and immunology as a whole. We have to do things different. Brian talked about our legacy on a very big oncology company, and we've had to really think about doing things different, and they come around 3 things. The first is around the innovation and education, like the products that we have to deliver have to be innovative, and you heard about the great products that we already have, not specifically here, but Tom talked about also the future of where we're going in terms of different therapeutic areas, and then the education around that Monica, Tom, and Brian just spoke to. The second one is around building out the capabilities to make sure patients can get the product, have a good experience, feel that from beginning of diagnosis to treatment and staying on therapy, that patients have the support that they need, that you as dermatologists have what you need to make sure that they can go through as least friction as possible to make that happen. And the last piece is making sure that we continue to build the best team possible at BMS to work with you. It's building a diverse team with different backgrounds who understand the dermatology space and continue to have opportunities to grow and develop within Bristol Myers Squibb. And so it comes down to the innovation on our products, the capabilities, and our team that will continue to be the opportunities ahead to make a difference for you and the dermatology community.
I think that was very eye-opening. I learned a lot. I think we're almost at the end of our program. Do you guys have any final words to add before we close?
The only
Please go ahead, Monica.
I was just going to say, I mean, I think it's a opportunity for us to just say thank you to all the dermatology providers for really what they do day in and day out to improve patient outcomes. So that would be, you know, just a remark that we would all be remiss to not share at the conclusion of this call.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and I wanted to say the same thing. Thanks to everything that you guys do to help patients who are suffering from whatever dermatological conditions that they have. And thank you for partnering with us. Like this whole premise of this discussion was to show that we cannot do this in isolation. We can't do this alone. That the only way that we'll be able to advance the science in the field is by working together, all aligned around where we started today, which is the North Star for delivering for patients. And so, you know, there's always opportunities for us to engage. One of the things I love about dermatology is there's lots of meetings and opportunities like this. So I look forward to seeing all of you on the weeks and months to come, at whatever venue that may be around the globe.
Thank you so much, all. I think it was a wonderful, wonderful panel. We learned a lot from all of you, and we got to know BMS now much, much better. So welcome to dermatology. I thank you so much. I thank you for your support to dermatology, and have a good evening, all. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.